There are rituals in the beatnik religion. In order to partake in the rituals, you must form a bohemian crew. This is essentially 5 to 7 disenfranchised upper middle class white kids whose parents can afford to lay out $40,000 for them to spend 4 years at college thinking they're beatniks. As for the rituals themselves, there must be coffee, cigarettes, and beer. You must read good poetry and write bad poetry, and then read that out loud. You must smoke reefer and listen to jazz and stay up all night. There is also room within the beat religion to call and ask your parents for money. There must be deep philosophical discussions that go on for hours and hours about nothing. Every gathering must end at 3 or 4 in the morning with some drunken friend in your face yelling, "But you still haven't proven that you exist, man." Well, I'm tired, drunk, and high. I'm going to sleep now. Let's see if I exist tomorrow. Don't climb into bed with me again. It makes me uncomfortable. That's another ritual. There must be 2 or more awkward sexual situations with 2 or more people that don't really culminate in anything but one person crying. Am I gay? I think I'm gay. Then it's not really a sexual situation as much as it's babysitting a crisis. There must also be a few occasions when you look down into your palm at a very small square piece of paper with maybe a Disney character on it, or Mr. Natural or a star printed on it, and say, "Are you sure you know the guy where you got this from?" It's cool, right? It's cool, right? I am not afraid. I'm going to do it. You're going to hang out, right? The last time I did this, I forgot my name. There are also pilgrimages within the beatnik religion. Of course, any car ride with another person, music, reefer, and no real destination can be a beatnik pilgrimage. Some turn out to be more important than others. In order to go on the pilgrimages, you must choose your beatnik brother from your crew. You must find your Jack or your Neil. My Jack was a guy named Jim. I met him during my freshman year at college. Jim was an Irish kid. He had long blonde hair and wore a faded Levi's jacket that had a red and white yin-yang symbol on the back that he had hand-painted there one night. Jim was angry but sweet. He'd been in the Boston area all his life. His father lived in Cambridge and his mother lived in Brookline. He spent a good part of his childhood on Cape Cod. Jim liked to drink. At dorm room parties, he would usually consume a 6-pack of Genesee cream ale as he railed about politics, rants that fell on the deaf ears of drunken dyslexics and party kids. Towards the end of the evening, Jim would stand up, hammered, and break into a flawless Jim Morrison impression and sing the first verse of Break On Through, then pass out on the floor. This was a ritual. The second part of the ritual was that all the people in the room would gather around Jim's body and draw on his face with a pen. Jim would brood around the quad, chain-smoking Marlboros and ranting about the Vietnam War as if he had been there. Da Nang was a mistake, man. We shouldn't have been there, man. It wasn't our war, Mark. I would say, Jim, you weren't there. You're 20. It's 1982. Take it easy. It's over. I can still see the peace sign on your cheek. Jim was the kind of kid who would go away for the weekend and come back 3 weeks later and say, we went down the Cape and I lost my watch. What did I miss? Can I check out your notes, man? Jim was my running buddy, and we made the pilgrimages. The most important was the pilgrimage to Jack Kerouac's grave. Do I have time to read this? It was a beautiful day in Boston. The air had an electric chill. I called Jim and I said, "We're going to visit Jack." He said, "All right, man, swing by." I remember the gray came over me. I was present, alive, in the moment, connected to all things. And then I actually have author's instructions in parentheses. Dim the lights in the room you're in, put on Coltrane and read this aloud. Standing. We climbed behind the helm of a 1979 Honda 5-speed foreign car, a heresy, not really beat, but it was my dad's and it was free. The mellow hum of Japanese machinery propelled us towards our destiny, Boston to Lowell, all 45 miles. We didn't fall asleep once. We talked about art, politics, philosophy, and what to have for lunch. We jammed to jazz and beat our hands on the dash. I think we made it through half of Coltrane's A Love Supreme when we pulled onto the path to the angelic holy hipster cemetery and the tomb of St. Jack. We were led to the gravesite by an ancient guide wearing a hat with ear flaps. We assumed he was the caretaker. He told us that it was the most popular grave in the cemetery. When he spoke, the top plate of his dentures would slip in his mouth. It looked like he had an extra set of teeth where his tongue should have been. He said, Bobby Dylan and Joan Baez came up to visit. When we got to the grave, we thanked him and we wandered away, he wandered away, kicking leaves up the path, talking to himself. I think we had the same moment most pilgrims have at the grave of Kerouac. We gazed down at the headstone, awed to be in the presence of Jack. We were there to pay our respects. We were there because we drove there. We were there because part of our journey was to bear witness to the place where his journey ended. So earnest. We were there to earn some beat creds. My brain was trying to calculate significance, manufacture some meaning. My soul was a dry sponge, craving to absorb some residual greatness out of the sod. I lit a joint, I sucked it in a deep hit, held it, and from my constricted throat I said, you know what, man? We gotta get on the road. Yeah, Jim said, I know what you mean. There was a moment of deep silence between us, and I exhaled slowly and watched the smoke dissipate in the gray, cold air of Lowell. No, I mean now. I've got to be back for class in an hour. It's romantic lit, and if I miss it again, I won't be able to major in English. Sometimes pilgrimages have their limitations. We left an offering at the grave because that's what you do at the tombs of your heroes. We set a small bottle of gin in front of the headstone. Codependency doesn't need to stop just because someone's dead.